Yeah.
Excellent. Most excellent. Everybody, you know what kind of groove that was? That was a
What was it?
bossa nova. It was a bossa nova, Brazilian groove.
Yeah.
Thank you for tuning in. Welcome to the Drummers Education Connection. We are here every Tuesday morning, Pacific time, 11 a.m., for an hour to talk about drums and drumming and teaching and music and life and all that great stuff. And we'd love to hear from you. We'd love to have you chime in and tell us, comment on our show, ask us questions, give us ideas for what you'd like to see on the show, drummers you'd like to interview. If you're a drummer or an industry person and you'd like to be interviewed or like to come back on the show, just give us a shout. We'd love to have you back and we'd love to have you on. What's up, Fred? Nice to see you, man. Good to see you recovering real well. We are here. It's just the three of us today. My name's Jeremy Steinkohler. I'm here with my friends and excellent human beings, fantastic drummers and educators, Chip Ritter down in Tucson, Arizona.
Hello.
And Rick Stojak in San Diego, California.
Welcome.
We are missing our dear friend and compadre, Bart Robley, who is out on tour. So we're thinking about Bart, and we'll see him next week for our Deck the Halls show. So our Deck the Halls show, just to give you a little teaser, is our annual holiday show. And we talk during that episode, we talk about all the products that we recommend for gift giving for the holidays and things that we've gotten that we like and just products. It's basically a product show. And we have some really special, exciting things that we're going to be able to give away on that show next week. So be sure to tune in. You have to be on to win. We're going to give away a snare drum from Gretsch Drums.
Snare drum,
a full-on snare drum that you will receive at your doorstep from Gretsch Drums if you are the lucky winner. We have some Aquarian drum heads we're going to give away, and we may have some other stuff as well. I know we're going to have some books of ours that we're going to hand out, give away, I should say. There's Rick Stojak's How to Build a Drum Groove series. Those are phenomenal books. If you haven't checked them out, you are missing the boat.
And I'm giving away a pair of sticks.
Chip, not just any sticks. Chip Ritter
signature model from Agner Drumsticks from Switzerland.
Yeah, not all of us can be as famous as Chip Ritter and have
sorry.
But Chip does, for real, because he's earned it. Anyways, we're going to be giving away a bunch of stuff next week. Tune in. You don't have to have any special qualifications to win. You just have to be watching the show. And we'll be happy to share our recommendations for great drum gifts to give and to get and give away some cool stuff.
The grand prize, do you know what the very top grand prize is?
I don't. What is it?
A date with Chip Ritter.
Hey, bring your chapstick.
And you can, if you want, you can tune out just before we give that one away. What else was I going to say? Oh yeah, if you like to support what we do here at the Drummers Education Connection, please consider making a donation to our Patreon page. That helps us pay for our expenses, running our website, keeping the lights on, and hosting our Deck Day events. We have our next Deck Day coming up in April. We're going to do it at the Aquarian Drumheads Warehouse down in Orange, California. And that is going to be a blast. So we'll talk more about that as it gets closer. In the meantime, before we start off our show, today we're going to talk about finding inspiration. And this is a topic I love to talk about. And we're going to, unfortunately, Bart's not here, but we'd love to hear your input about where you guys find your inspiration. And it can be from anywhere. But before we do that, I want to start with our little segment called Good Things. And Good Things is a chance for us to check in every week and connect with one another and just see what's going on in our lives that's going good. We love to share good stuff and try to maintain a culture of positivity and good things. So, Chip, what is happening for you, my friend?
Man, the good thing for me is I bought a house and I'm moving in.
Whoa, my God, that is the best good thing maybe that's ever happened on Deck. Congratulations.
Yeah, man. Watch out. Chip's got a pad, so it's going to be the man cave. The whole place is a man cave.
Wow, that's amazing! Congratulations!
And I got recliners that go up and lift you up till where you're standing.
Reclining seats, you mean?
Recliners.
Oh my God!
Yeah, so we watch TV. When we're getting done watch TV, we just hit the button until you're standing up.
That's amazing.
I didn't know they did that until they got here. It's pretty cool.
How about
able to make noise in your new home? Will you be able to have rehearsals and teach lessons there?
I don't know if I'll be able to do rehearsals, but I'll be able to teach lessons if I get my drum studio soundproofed. I got a bedroom that I'm designated for the drum room. Hopefully I can get it set up.
That's awesome. What a fantastic thing that would be to be able to teach lessons in your home studio.
Oh, that'd be awesome. Yeah, you're
Yeah.
right.
Very cool.
So
I
what's
dream.
good? What's
Yeah.
that?
I was going to say, I have a commute to my studio. It's about a half hour, and I always
Uh-huh.
fantasize about having a studio here at my house. Cut out an hour of traveling every day. Rick, what's going on with you? That's good.
You know, my niece in Connecticut, Maddie, just turned 13. And I thought, how can we make that birthday special? And I thought, well, I'll check in with my great friend Chip Ritter and see if he can make a video for her. And Chip made this incredible video singing happy birthday to Maddie while he was drumming and juggling and singing all at the same time. And it really made a mark. I think she really loved it, made her feel really special. We got great feedback. So my good thing is Chip Ritter. Once and then Chip, I believe after that you have set up a Cameo. So
Yes, I got a Cameo. I can put a link in the comments if I'm allowed to.
Of course. Please, please.
yes.
I will do that.
So for what? How much? 25, $50?
$25 for a customized, personalized birthday juggling drum solo.
Wow.
That's pretty cool. You know, you sent me one of those a couple years ago, and I couldn't believe it. I was like, wait, did he pre-record this? Because it was like so perfect,
Wow.
and it was, you know, personalized to me, and it made my day. So
That's
highly
awesome.
recommend. Great little fun gift. We'll recommend that for the Christmas show.
Yeah, huh? Yeah. Maybe I can give away a birthday shout out.
Yeah, there you go. I love it. That's a great one to give away, man. That's awesome. What's that, Rick?
I think that's the funnest thing ever.
Yeah, that's really great.
Yeah.
So for me, my son Evan's coming home from college on Friday. We're super excited to see him. It's going to be great. And then he and I have a couple of shows while he's here on break. We're playing a house concert in Berkeley on the 21st, which I'm super excited about, in a jazz trio setting. And then a gig at Mr. Tipples in San Francisco on the 2nd of January. So if you're in the Bay Area, come on down, man. Let me know. All right.
You know, I want to talk about house concerts, Jeremy, because I think they're the coolest thing ever. And I thank you to the people who support home concerts. They open up their homes and basically their house is the venue. And people bring pot. Do they bring potluck at your gigs too? Do they do it that way?
No, usually the people who are hosting do some light snacks and refreshments kind of thing. And that's part of like what they feel their responsibility is. But yeah, for those of you who don't know, these are actually some of my favorite gigs, have been some of my favorite gigs ever to play. You're basically getting someone, usually an affluent person who's got a larger home, to open up their space and turn it into a concert venue. And so, you know, I've done maybe, I don't know, in my life, maybe 20 of these, 25. And they're amazing because they're super intimate. Everyone's right there. They're sitting there in someone's big living room and they're listening to you play, and you have this real great connection with the audience, and you're sharing stories, and they're really engaged with the music, and it's phenomenal. It's phenomenal. It's like it's what you wish every concert was, where everyone's just paying total attention the whole time.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I
You
would,
know,
I
I
would love.
played. I'm going to do a Bart Robley. I was on tour with Mr. Boogie Woogie in 2005, and we played this place called Luna Negra, and it was the first show on my European tour. And the crowd, when the guys broke down and did the volume really low and did a solo, the crowd, when we finished the song with was silent.
Wow.
And then they clapped.
Yeah.
They were like listening to every little detail.
Yeah.
It was dead silent.
That's cool.
It's beautiful.
I find that like at house concerts, I sell more CDs.
Yeah.
You know, because people are more connected to it. You know, it's not like they're at some club or bar and just listening to music or paying attention or half paying attention. They're right there, and they're there to support and hear it, and they feel a connection to it, and then they buy the stuff afterwards. You know, I actually had this amazing experience at a house concert one time. We played a house concert as a sort of a thank you / tribute to the great Alan Toussaint. You guys know Alan Toussaint?
Yeah.
the New Orleans piano player and producer, and
Yeah.
him. And so he was in town. This is before he was. I mean, he was always well known in New Orleans, but never super well known outside of that until later in his career. And this is sort of before he was as well known outside of New Orleans. And he was in town playing with his band. And the guy I was playing a New Orleans R&B band called Hot Links, and the leader of the band was a big scholar and like aficionado of New Orleans culture and music, and invited Alan Toussaint to come to this house party that we were going to play at in his honor. And so he came with his band and heard us play and came up to me afterwards and told me how much he dug my playing, which was, I was like floored.
That's cool.
It was super cool, man. And again, it's that house concert vibe that's so conducive to connecting with people. So anyways, yeah, house concert, December 21st, Steinkohler Trio, myself and my son, and an amazing local bass player. So in Berkeley.
All right. There's we learned from that, right? If there's not enough gigs, well, start your own band, right? If there's not enough venues, well, see if there's a friend who would host a house party.
Singer doesn't show up, start your own band.
Yeah, no, it's true, Rick. I mean, usually the tickets for these house concerts are $20 or $25 a pop. Mm-hmm. And usually the host is, happy to donate the entirety of the ticket sales to the artist. So, you can make more money playing these gigs. You sell out a house concert of, 40 people at $20 a pop. That's $800 for the band.
Yeah.
So that's better than a lot of the gigs we'll play locally. Yeah.
So
yeah,
great.
we could do a whole thing on house concerts. Yeah. That's cool. All right. Yeah. In the meantime, today we're talking about finding inspiration.
Finding inspiration.
Yes. And we'd love to hear from you, Fred, and anybody else who's tuning in right now about where you find your inspiration, because I know it comes from lots of places. Sometimes expected, sometimes not so expected. Mm-hmm. Rick, when you think about that, what comes up for you?
For me, I've put a lot of thought into this, and I kept thinking about, well, this drummer inspired me and that drummer inspired me and blah, blah, blah. We've all said it's kind of boring. Like,
right.
I got inspiration from Buddy Rich.
Right.
They're all out there. And I thought, why is that not resonating with me? And I think that the true inspiration that I think what's really inspired me is audiences. When an audience gets into it. And I've had so many gigs in my life with big, huge crowds and small crowds. And you can find inspiration at a small show from just a person or two dancing, and that they're getting it. And to me, that's the stuff that moves me. The pure art of entertaining people. I find incredibly inspiring. And then it's the same thing with students too. Like, to me, when I see a drummer of any level of experience learn to play something new that they've never been able to play before, they get it. That feeling is just so good. That motivates me to want to drum and continue on and get inspired to figure out something new that I can't play. Because how long you've been playing, there's going to be something new that you can't do yet, and to grow. And so, I think, well, if this drummer figured out how to do a beat and then a fill and then back to a fill in time, some of the most basic stuff, think of how challenging that was. And then if they did it, that blows me away, because then I'm like, well, if they did it, then I can figure out how to, well, let me start working on clave with the left foot or something really, really, something that a player's been playing for decades would work on. So, so I don't know. I think just look for inspiration in unexpected places, and you might find it. So that was my first thought. And then just the other inspiration to me is that drumming itself is so meditative. just relaxes me, and it just puts me in that trance, you know. And when it's challenging too, you know, like when you figure out something that you couldn't do before, and then you get it, that's the inspirational stuff. So it's not so much for me, you know, I really had to explore this in my head. It's not so much that like watching a drummer who's some badass. I guess that can be inspiring.
Sure.
But I mean, it can be, no doubt, no doubt. But to me, like, you know, when I had Zorro here in a clinic, and Zorro played like magnificently. It was brilliant. But then he was able to explain what he was doing. That was the inspiration. For me, that's inspiring because it gives me hope. It's like, oh, wait, I can do that, rather than like, whoa, how did that even happen? That's almost intimidating, you know? And I think people are going online and watching drummers riff because, you know, you're going to get more likes for riffs, but you know, for me, that's not always inspiring, you know. So it's the people who are. So
You
I don't
know,
know what on that.
I'm so glad you said that, Rick. You know, I've had that experience, and I know a lot of my students have, where they feel like sometimes when they watch someone just shred, it's
Yeah.
like, oh, I could never do that. You
Right.
know, I'll never be that good, or, you know, and it's easy to get discouraged.
Right.
And I think, you know, it's important. I think it's really important to surround yourself with people that are positive, obviously, naturally, you know, and not discouraging and not, you know, sort of squashing you down. But I agree that you can. It's easy. I find inspiration across the spectrum. You know, I absolutely find inspiration from the amazing drummers who are up there at the top, who have inspired me because their playing is so tasteful and beautiful and makes me think about how I want to emulate them or whatever.
Yep.
And then I find inspiration from the rank beginners, you know, who, like you say, who are motivated. You know, how inspiring is it to have a student come in who's 65 years old, who's taken up drums for the first time?
Right.
What does that make you think of? Like, wow, what could I do? You know, that I've always wanted to do. That's not related to drumming. Maybe that would be inspiring. Oh, I've always wanted to do whatever. You know, try stand-up comedy.
Right.
You know, or whatever. You know, quilting.
Yeah, where it's not like safe to go off and figure out something new like that. You have
Right.
to be a bit vulnerable.
That's right. Well,
Really to challenge yourself.
yeah, and for us, it's easy to forget because we're all so accomplished at playing the drums. It is a safe thing, you know. Like it's easy. We can show up on a gig, you know, we've never even rehearsed before and play in front of an audience, right? For most
Right.
people, that's terrifying.
Right.
And yeah, right. But it's about taking risks and putting yourself out there and being
Right.
vulnerable. Yeah.
Yeah, to take that risk, it helps to be inspired. So something lights you up and attracts you to that, then you're more likely to try to do that. You know, inspired, the definition is to stimulate to action, motivate. And then inspiration's definition is stimulation of the mind or emotions to a high level of feeling or activity.
You know, I happen to know that the word inspiration or inspire comes from the Latin, like it's something like inspirare or something.
Inspirar,
Yeah, which actually means to breathe into,
or blow into, yes.
like
Breathe life into.
right, to inspire, right? To expire is to die. To inspire is to inhale and to breathe and to live.
Isn't that interesting? Because that implies meditation and being present,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
rather than
right.
forcing something out. You're playing with inspiration rather than struggling through.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so interesting.
And it's where, you know, inspiration's where you find it. It's
right.
where you find it. You know, there's a quote that I like it says, anyone can look for fashion in a boutique or history in a museum, but the creative explorer looks for history in a hardware store and fashion in an airport. Robert Weeder.
Oh, that's interesting. I like that. I like
Yeah,
that a
it's
lot.
pretty cool. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, I guess part of that is just sort of reminding us to be good observers, to pay attention.
To
It's
be
really
on the
easy
lookout. Yeah.
it's really easy to get sort of to miss opportunities for inspiration because you're not paying attention. You know, it's easy when you go to a concert and you're watching your heroes play. Oh, they're so amazing, they're so inspiring. But um, you can then be inspired by a street musician busking on the street. And
Yeah.
it's not so much always a matter of how the level of musicianship or the level of quality, as sometimes just taking risks and facing fears and
I'm a big fan of if the last time I found my keys was when I was looking for them. So looking for it and being on the lookout for it is huge. Would you guys do me a big favor? I want to try an experiment with you.
Sure.
I want you to both look around your room and look at all the red things in your room. What's red in your room? Just kind of make a note. What stands out as red? And then now, when you're done, close your eyes for me. Close your eyes and imagine a red stop sign or a bright red, cherry red Corvette. And then tell me something, Jeremy. What else is red? Like an apple? What else is red?
Like in the world or in my room?
In the world.
Um,
Red. The color red.
I got one.
Go ahead, Rick.
What is it, Rick?
A rose.
A rose is red. Okay. Now open your eyes and look around the room. You see more red?
I see the same red.
You see the same red.
I-
Does it pop out at you?
I noticed a little more.
You notice a little more?
Yeah, I noticed a little more than the first row.
If you do this exercise and really focus on that color, you'll start seeing red throughout the day more and more. It's what you focus on, you attract, is what I'm saying. And so if you're focused on what is inspiration, what inspired you in the past, and that feeling you had when you were inspired, and you're thinking, I'd like to be inspired. What's going to light me up today? You'll start paying attention and be on the lookout for it. I think that's when I'm most often inspired, is because something came at me and hit me. And I'm like, wow, I remember that feeling of being blown away by it, or just, hey, that makes me want to play my drums. And maybe it's not even a drumming related thing. Maybe it's the Tigger song. It makes me want to go play a drum solo,
Right.
Yeah.
It's because I'm looking for it. It's just my experience.
Do you guys remember the movie American Beauty
Mm-hmm.
with what was his name?
Kevin Spacey.
Kevin Spacey. Thank you.
Yeah.
So there's a scene in that movie where the kid who's sort of the main young protagonist, he's a videographer, and he's like an artist, and he has this thing. He says to his girlfriend, "Do you want to see the most beautiful thing I've ever filmed?" And he has this video where he filmed a plastic bag that was blowing in the wind, kind of in a circle, and it was just like 2 minutes of the bag just kind of circling around, floating above the sidewalk. And he said that was the most beautiful thing he'd ever filmed, and it was this beautiful, graceful, moment that he had captured just by paying attention. Whereas, it's so easy to walk by something like that and think that's just garbage.
Yeah.
Right. And he saw this beauty in it. And I think that's a great little anecdote to remind us of that you can find it in the most unexpected places, and it doesn't have to just be where you think it's going to be, or you expect it to be.
Yeah, that kind of puts it into focus about what is good music. Well, you could argue that good music is anything that inspires people. It might be out of key, it might be out of tempo, it might not resolve, but what if that song or band just really inspired people? Then technically that's good. I mean, it's done its job of inspiring.
Yeah.
I would, if you guys are ever back in the Bay Area at the right time, I would invite you to come to a Bandworks concert. For those of you who don't know, Bandworks is this program that I started in 1993. It's a school of rock and roll, basically, kind of program. And we have adults and kids bands. There's about 35 or 40 bands every quarter, and each quarter is 8 weeks long. And they practice for 8 weeks with a coach, one of our teachers, 2 hours a week, and then they play a show at a local venue at the end. And I would guarantee that you will feel completely inspired by watching that show. And the range of quality is wide. You know, you get kind of rank beginner bands who this is their first time playing together. They've all been playing for like 6 months, and they can put together a few basic songs. And then you get people who, you know, used to play in bands, and now this is where they're finding other people to play with, and they're basically semi-professional players, let's call them, and they're really, really good. And so in one night at one club, you can see, you know, 6 bands or 15 bands during the long one, during the Sunday. And the range of quality is from really, really beginning to very, very, very good.
16 bands. Wow.
Yeah, that's our kids show. We have like all the kids in one day. It's
That's cool.
And each band gets about a half hour. So that's like an 8-hour show. Yeah. Anyways, but you know, the point is just that it's totally inspiring. And I find myself often feeling just even more inspired by the beginners than by the really good players sometimes, you know.
Fred Fisher said, lately I've spent a lot of time on the phone with Rick Stojak, and our conversations about teaching and how and what we teach, how we transitioned into full-time musician, writing exercises, etc. Really got my juices flowing, and excited about what the new year will bring.
Wow.
Yeah. I would like to add, when Fred said juices flowing and excited about what the new year will bring, when you're excited and when you're pumped up on your favorite playlist or whatever, and you get into that state of happiness, that's when you really need to like open your eyes and think about, what else can I get going on? What else is lighting me up? That's a good way to find inspiration, I think.
Mm-hmm. Well, and there's a great reminder that we inspire each other.
That's true.
You know, I mean, I always walk away from this show feeling inspired, because I learned so much from you guys, and you help me believe in myself more. And you know, it's like enthusiasm breeds enthusiasm, right?
That's good. I don't have that experience when I watch a Jeremy Steinkohler drum solo. I just throw my drumsticks in the trash.
Oh, see, that I don't believe that for a hot second, because that's what I do when I watch a Chip Ritter drum solo.
No, that's inspiring. Always inspired to be a part of this.
Yeah, I mean, gosh, you know, when I'm inspired by the work, the dedication that Rick has to his students, and he has a whole Facebook group dedicated to just the students of Rick Stojak's drum studio.
That's cool.
And they're all connected, and they all, you know, are invested, and it's a beautiful thing, man. I'm inspired by how put together your drum studio is, Rick. Like, you always make me feel like, wow, I want to up my game, because I see how good your game is and how good my game could be, you know. And Chip, I see you playing that breast cancer can stick it drumathon event. And am I confusing those, the two different events or the same event?
That's the drumathon. Yeah, that's the same event.
And you know, you got up there and played a drum solo sitting next to Greg Bissonette. Like, holy crap, that's unbelievable to me. And you hung right with him. It didn't feel like, oh, here's Greg, this imposter. It's like, no,
I just couldn't believe I was on the same stage next to that guy.
Well, you should believe it, man, because that's how good you are. That's how good a drummer you are.
Man. Thank you, man.
It's amazing how all this inspiration just energizes us.
Yeah.
You know,
well, it's like, yeah.
We get it from each other. I mean, we've been doing this show for 4 years, and it's all about inspiration, you know, inside inspiration. I mean, that's kind of our tag, but what it does is it energizes you. It's not like big bucks to do all of this stuff. So
and when you're cool to other drummers, it helps you get more into it in a positive way. I remember my father took me to see Buddy Rich in a year before he passed away. He played at Ventana Canyon, and there was maybe 20 people in the room. And I said, Dad, can I go back there and look behind his drum set? and my dad let me, and I was scoping out his drums, and I was so blown away. We waited in line and got his autograph, and I, out of nowhere, I blurted out, "I'm a drummer too," and then immediately I felt horrible. I just told Buddy Rich I was a drummer,
Wow.
and then Buddy Rich looked at me and said, "Yeah, that's great. There's not enough of us out here." And then he said, "What's your name?" And I said, "Chip." And he goes, "Chip, keep it up, kid." Buddy Rich on a signature thing for me.
Oh,
and
man.
and I held that in my stick bag for years, and it still inspires me.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good stuff. In fact, if you guys ever seen my signature logo, the Chip Ritter signature,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
if you look at the P and the C and the H and I, how I spell Chip,
Mm-hmm.
it's an exact replica of Buddy Rich's handwriting, because I traced it over and over and over, and that's
great.
how I signed my name to this day.
You know, you never know.
Inspired.
We've talked about this on the show before, how you never know where the things you do, what impact they have down the road and
Yeah.
where they lead.
Yeah.
And it just reminds you to be real present all the time when you're dealing with people, when you're communicating, when you're teaching, and when you're playing, to be just the best version of whatever you can muster of yourself in that moment, as a player, as a teacher, as a friend, as a human being, as a listener. Because sometimes those little things that might easily slip by your radar or might not appear to be of any significance in the moment can turn out to be very impactful to other people down the road.
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's like making that connection to other people. That's get out of that comfort zone and go over and talk to that drummer like Chip did. You might not have gone over, even made that walk and made that connection. And thank goodness that you did. And so, yeah, it's like, go to that show, take that lesson, ask that question.
Right.
Yeah. Don't be afraid to ask.
Yeah, exactly. And I'd say don't do things out of fear. I mean, sometimes we're motivated, but maybe motivated is more of a fear based. I'm not sure if motivated by fear is different than doing something out of love and inspiration and interest.
That's a good point. That's a good point, Rick. Yeah, I think
That's a good point. But I also there's a flip side to that, Rick. I think that there's some things in my life that something I was a little afraid of, that a friend of mine told me to head towards that fear, because it might pay off. If I was a little scared of doing something and trying something new, there's a little bit of excitement, a little anxiety goes down before I try it. Like, hey, what if that guy rejects me? What if he doesn't say hi? What if blah, 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 blah? And just say, okay, well, I should go for it. Go for it. Just go for it.
I agree. It's finding that balance, isn't it?
Yeah, the balance, I think, is the key that we're talking about. Failure. What I heard something about yesterday. Failure is temporary.
Mm-hmm.
It only becomes permanent when you quit. When you give up, it only becomes permanent when you give up. So don't give up.
Yes.
Stay inspired.
Yes. Boy, this is important stuff for drum teachers, because we have to inspire our students.
Yep.
And we have to stay inspired ourselves.
Yeah, it's hard to transmit what you don't have.
Yeah. I'll make a
can I ask you guys a question?
Yeah.
Sure. Have you ever had to teach lessons, or have you taught lessons where you knew that you had to try to be inspiring and motivating for your students, but you weren't feeling at all motivated yourself?
I have. I've definitely done that.
I definitely have. And
yeah,
I don't know what my recipe was, and this is like a little
balloons. That's your recipe.
that's because he went like that.
Is that how the balloons?
Oh, now you just dimmed. You're making all kinds of
well, it's moving my
super cool effects.
And
it's your hand gestures.
Wow, if you're just listening on Spotify, the screen is changing based on my hand gestures. Balloons popping up.
That's a sign of an Apple product at work.
Yeah, right.
Wow. Thank you, AI.
So, what were you
So,
saying, Rick?
well, what I was saying is there are times when I've written out a new page for one of my books. And I am so fired up about it. I'm so inspired. That idea is so fresh on my mind that I've just got to teach that in the lesson.
Mm-hmm.
And even if that's not like what we had been working on,
Mm-hmm.
let me give you something fresh, man. I've just like, this is on my mind. And I'm like,
Right.
I know I'm going to give them the most inspired, best drum lesson on that topic. Then
That's
they'll
a great
ever.
piece of advice. Yeah.
And I'm like, not afraid. And I will tell them, like, hey, I know this is not in the game plan of what we were working on, but I'm excited to share this new thing that I wrote. And I'm like, I'm still writing it. So here's a draft. You can help me. What do you think of this page I wrote? So they're suddenly
Yeah.
involved in
Yeah.
the lesson. And those are some of the best lessons ever.
I drove. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off, Jeremy.
That's okay. You go.
I was just going to say I drove to my lessons to go teach yesterday, and on the way there, I was listening to Linda Ronstadt's "I've Been Cheated," the shuffle thing,
Mhm.
and I got so into the shuffle thing, I got in there and I started playing the shuffle and turned the song on and started doing my two-handed Texas type of shuffle, and the guy that was taking the lesson was like, "Forget what we're doing,
Yeah,
teach me
show me
that,
that. Yeah.
show me
Yeah.
that, man."
Awesome. Chip, I don't remember. You remember? Sorry, I don't know if you remember this, but there was some time when you shared a fill on deck, and it was this move that you had learned. And you'll tell me who you learned it from. It was right, left kick, right, left kick, right, left kick, right, left kick.
Yeah, Fred Hayes, my first drum teacher, did that one time in a lesson, and it blew my doors off.
Yeah, and when you showed that to me that week, every single one of my students was taught to play that fill.
Awesome.
Do you know what I
Awesome.
mean? Because you gave me that, I took it and I went and shedded it for like a day and a half. And I was like, oh, this is so cool. I'm going to show it to all my students because I'm excited.
Yeah, it's a great little ditty. I love those things.
You inspired me. I inspired them.
Yeah, my friend Carl Cherry used to go on Facebook and do cherry chop drops. He used to do a chop drop where he'd take a 2-minute video, and in the video he'd show you a little sticking, like similar to the one I'm showing that I explained to you guys. And he'd slowly break it down. Then he'd start speeding up and show you how you actually apply it in 2 minutes. And every time I saw a new chop drop, I'd stop everything I was doing and watch it because I knew it would light me up again and rekindle the fire I have for drumming. And when I go play them, I'd enjoy my experience more because of that.
Sometimes, Rick, I also like you have a program with each student. It's different for every student, but they're like on some kind of track,
Yeah.
and, okay, we're working on this again. Okay, we're progressing through this and through syncopation and through bass drum control and all these things.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's the lessons that take a detour that are the most inspiring, exciting.
Right.
Yesterday I had a conversation with one of my students. He came to deck. Oh no, he was supposed to come to deck day, but he was sick. But he's a phenomenal drummer, Mickey. And we ended up having like a 40-minute conversation yesterday and during his lesson about just personalities in music and people, people's different approaches and how they are in life versus how they are as their players. And some people being really analytical and detail oriented, and some people let's just feel it, man. And we had a whole fantastic conversation about it. And I said, oh man, I'm sorry we didn't do a lot of playing today. I know we got caught up talking about it. And he said, are you kidding? That was like the most fun lesson I've had in weeks.
Nice.
So you never know.
So let me ask you guys a question. What was the most inspiring drum lesson you've ever had?
Lesson, like a proper lesson?
Proper lesson. What was the one that lit you up the most? Did you have one that lit you up that stands out? Because I remember one lesson that I had asked my teacher, Fred Hayes. I said, he goes, what are you looking to get? What are your goals with the drumming? And I looked at him and I said, I want to tune my toms like yours because yours sound like they're in the studio. They sound so clean and cool and melodic when you go boom, boom, boom. How do you get them so perfect? And he looked at me and he said, "You know what, Chip? I think we should learn to play the snare drum first." And I was really, at first, I was really bummed out, right? I was really mad. I was like, how dare you? Blah, blah, blah. I'm paying you and blah, blah, blah. But after that lesson, I started exploring the snare drum like I've never explored the snare before. All the things that he showed me during that lesson, the rudiments, the accent patterns, the stuff this man could play just with 2 sticks on one drum blew me away and started me into rudiments again. It changed my playing. Just like reading Effortless Mastery blew my doors off and changed the way I approach my instrument.
Yeah,
it's great stuff.
Great book. If y'all don't know that book, check that one out. Effortless Mastery by Kenny
I'll put
Werner.
a link to the comments. Yeah, that's
Kenny,
a good
Kenny
one.
Werner. He's a jazz piano player in New York, and really a lot of musicians have read this book, and it's all about sort of the Zen approach to playing and mindset stuff. It's really, 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 really good.
Very cool.
So the lesson that sticks out for me is a lesson I had with Zorro on he called it the human drum machine. And he played had Tears for Fears, Everyone Wants to Rule the World. And he said, "Okay, Rick, here's the deal. You're auditioning for Tears for Fears right now to be their live drummer." He played the song Go. I just had to play, and I just kind of laid down and I'm like, "That's it." He goes, you didn't get it. I'm like, oh man. And he's like, "Listen," and he called, I don't remember whether he called it or I called the lesson the human drum machine. He's like, "That's a drum machine part, but you're a live drummer. You're auditioning for the live gig. So you've got to have the essence of the drum machine, but you've got to make it sound human and add the human feel." And I'm like, oh man, I kind of missed that. I just was looking at the rhythm. I wasn't thinking that deep. And he's like, "Listen to the shakers. They're like right, left, So we were suddenly top edge to kind of more mirror that shaker sound, right? And then he's like, "Wait, you were stopping your snare drum when you hit when you hit the snare, you stop the kick." I was going kick, snare, kick, snare. He's like, "No, listen to it deeper. Listen, it's going boom, 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 boom. There's no pause on that bass line just because the snare is hitting.
Plays every note, yeah.
Every note." And so that alone had me rethinking everything I was ever playing. It's like, wow, do I drop out the kick when I hit a snare? Or how often would it be cool to just keep the kick pattern, think of the bass drum independently? So, I took that idea and applied it to so many things. And I was just so fired up. It sort of changed my drumming,
That's cool.
And then instead of adding a backbeat, he was adding some ghost, just the backbeat. He was adding all kinds of ghost notes on the snare too. So we were getting kind of like, let me try it. So it kind of had that boom, 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 boom of the drum machine. It had some ghost notes and some accents, and it had all of that. And man, I was just so fired up. So I just thank you, Zorro, for that lesson. So.
That's cool, man.
Rick, you got the gig.
All right.
You got the gig. You got the gig.
And it wasn't just copy exactly what the drum machine did. It was adding the human feel. So that's why it's the human drum machine. So
hey, do you guys?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I thought I could. That was a live drummer on that note, on that original track.
Was it?
I believe so. Yeah.
Oh well.
It's a really interesting part. Yeah, it's cool. Anyway, sorry, Chip.
The shaker.
I was just going to ask. Do you guys know Steve Moore, the Mad Drummer, the drummer at the Wrong Gig?
Yes.
He's a good friend of mine. It turns out that guy really can. He's a great drummer musically, and that was just like one of his live performance things that got out of hand and got crazy. But he was telling me about this drummer. His biggest inspiration was this drummer that taught him that he would go watch. That was in like this 80s rock band, and he had such an infectious, deep groove. Every now and then he would stop, and the groove would keep going, and he'd start again. And the way he played, and he used to do that every now and then in a song, his groove was so thick that it was just, zoom, zoom, doom, you know what I mean? Just stopping inspired Steve, you know?
Wow, interesting.
It's cool.
I don't think I had any one lesson that I remember as like, oh, that was super inspirational. I will tell you this story, and this was an embarrassing story. When I was a kid, this was my second teacher, and I think I was 14, and this was for a couple of years. From like 12 to 14 or 15, I really didn't practice at all. I took lessons for a while, but I was a bad student. And turned out my teacher knew. Well, of course he knew. Like, just like we know when our students come in live in practice, we know in the first 30 seconds, right?
Yeah.
But I thought, because I was 14, that I was putting one over on him, and I thought he thought I was practicing when I wasn't. And he, wrote in my notebook every week what the assignment was, and I never even opened the notebook most weeks. This is, again, sort of a 2-year period from like 13 to 12 to 14. And finally, one week I got motivated to practice, and I opened up the book, and that week in my notebook, he had written, "If you read this, sign here."
Wow.
Yeah. And, he was basically trying to catch me in the bold-faced lie that I'd practiced when clearly I hadn't been practicing. And I was so embarrassed by that. I was mortified that he knew. I was like, oh no, I realized he knew, and that I wasn't putting one over on him at all. And I realized in that moment that I had only been cheating myself, right? That like he didn't give a crap whether I was practicing, really. I mean,
you can't control that. Yeah.
Yeah, and it doesn't change his life. This was all about me. And if I'm taking lessons, I'm taking lessons for myself. And I guess I was that I needed that little spark, that little moment of reality check / embarrassment to make me realize what I was doing. And that helped me turn the corner and he actually stopped after that. I was like, all right, this is not the time. But then when I got back into it a year later, I got really serious and started practicing. So
nice.
Yeah. So that was an interesting motivational moment that wasn't sort of where you'd expect to find it.
In a way, that is kind of finding inspiration, though, the way it panned out.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. But on an unexpected place, in an unexpected way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's so interesting. I have a student. He's 16. He's deep into sports, and he's a decent drummer. And week after week, he just was not evolving on the assignments I was giving him and the stuff we were working on, and it was getting a little bit frustrating for me because I didn't think he was really growing much. Mm-hmm. And I did the same thing. I wrote, when you practice this, will you initial? Like, I put a little note in the book. Mm-hmm. And initial once you see this page and practice it.
Yeah.
And I do it, and it hadn't been touched. And I was about ready to just call him out on it. Mm-hmm. About ready to tell his parents. And then I just said to his parent, I didn't do it. I just didn't have the heart to do it. I didn't want to embarrass him that bad. And I just said to the parents, he's not evolving. He's not working on my assignments, but he seems to just want to come in here and jam and let loose. Right. And they said, he's not getting time to practice, but we want to keep him in. So, he comes in every other week for an hour, and they said, that's fine. We find it valuable for him to just jam with you, and you're each on a set, and you guys play music and talk about songs and just jam to songs, and he'll evolve that way. Mm. And I said, okay, if you're all happy with it, I'm happy with it too. It doesn't have to be cookie cutter get page 10 down before you go to page 11. And everyone's stoked. You know what? Now we're 4 months in. The season is ending, and I know he's going to get back to those books.
Well, sometimes that I like that story. Thank you for sharing that. And I might suggest that you could tell him that, even if you don't sort of bust him to his parents.
Yeah, I think so. I think
That might be enough. It was enough for me. Like my parents weren't even involved in that whole situation. It was enough for me to feel like, oh yeah, time to get serious or not.
I've struggled. I've struggled with teaching. One of my students has Williams syndrome, and it affects him gravely. And I struggle all the time. I was really concerned with his progress on the drum set, rudimentary and coordination wise. And I was concerned about it. And I talked to his mother and his mother and said, just stop right there. Stop, Chip, stop. He is having the time of his life with you.
Right.
And we are so grateful that you even, take him on as a student, and so it's perspective too in the situation. And I don't, and I don't, ever since she said that, it's like, okay, I'm still teaching. Still teaching, but I have a different perspective about what the goal is.
Yeah. Right. Right. And then what your expectations are, not just progress, but of just what the lessons are supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's good. It's good to remember not everyone's in it for the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think I have this sort of, a priori assumption that, everyone who's coming wants to get better in the sort of same way. Not technically. I mean, like, I want to make progress. I want to get better. I want to play in bands and I want all these things. And it's not the same with everybody. Some people, like Rick was saying, like, they just want to come and this is like their therapy, and they come for an hour and they want to just bang around and learn maybe a couple of things, but it's not about sort of getting serious in the same way that I was serious.
It's so hard for me. I guess maybe it's ego, but it's so hard for me as a teacher to not want to lead them to being a drum ninja in their own right. It's so hard for me to not say, if you can learn to sight read, you can learn to feed yourself from different books.
Right. Yeah, I have a hard time, and I do usually with that kind of student. I do usually say, I cost too much money to take lessons like that. Like you could go for half the price, go take lessons with somebody that you can just hang out with and bang around,
or rent a room.
Yeah, right.
I got at PASIC, I got some great inspiration from the great Mike Dolber. Look up MikeDolber.com. He's like the English Dom Famulero out there. He's a brilliant drummer and spokesman for drumming. And he was saying, about 95% of the drummers out there are hobbyists.
Right.
Market to the 5%. Oh, let's make another drum book. Who are you making it for? For the 5% of the pros or the 95% hobbyists? Get those hobbyists. Some of them are going to eventually be pros. They're going to help out the drum industry. They're going to buy gear and all. So, and then I wanted to mention a thought that I got from a PASIC clinic. It was Quentin Robinson.
He was awesome.
Yeah, he was awesome. He's the drummer from Hamilton. Jeremy and Bart and I were there and got to see his clinic. And what he emphasized is that there's no two paths to success that are the same.
Mm-hmm.
And what he emphasized is to just find what's uniquely you. Just what's you and do that.
Be original.
Be original and stay true to yourself.
Mm.
That's why if a drummer says to me today, hey, I really want to work on double bass because I really, really want that, then we're going to work on some double bass, or whatever their interest is. And so just stick to what feels good. So much of what's inside in your heart, listen to your heart.
That's why they say follow your bliss.
Yeah.
Well, it's a good, it's really easy. This is a nice come full circle to talk about motivation because, when we were at PASIC, the Percussive Art Society conference, there's all these, it's a selection every year of basically, some of the world's best drummers. and they're all giving clinics for 45 or 50 minutes and doing a presentation. And you listen to these guys play, and women too, and they are incredible. They're unbelievably good. And it's so easy to watch and feel like, oh, I can never be that good. But oh crap, I lost my train of thought. What were we just talking about?
You were talking about coming full circle, and I said follow your bliss.
Oh, just that you will always fail if you're trying to sound like somebody else. You're trying to be like somebody else.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's really, it takes a while to really wrap your head around this, but that you have something of value to offer, and it's all about how hard you work to bring it out, to evolve what you're offering. You could say anybody who walks in off the street for their first drum lesson, oh, we're all equal human beings, of course, and they've got something to offer. Well, not yet. On the drums, they don't know how to do it yet, right? So they're going to develop their craft and develop their skill, and ultimately, hopefully, if they stick with it long enough and work hard enough, develop their own voice in terms of how they respond to music and what they contribute to the music they play. And that's what Q is talking about, is about, the path to success is your path for you, and it's not the same as his path, and it's not the same as all these other people. And it's easy to get wrapped up in like, oh, tell me what you did to get to that level, and what's the secret? If I just get the secret, then I'll know, and I'll be able to do it.
Yeah.
It doesn't work like that,
Yeah.
And like Zorro said when we did our podcast with Zorro, he said everybody is born with a gift.
Right.
You find your gift, and they're not all the same. You're all uniquely qualified to be you.
Right.
Yeah. And don't put up any walls. Just keep an open mind. You might have studied a lot of a specific style like Latin and find that that's your thing, but you really are working in a rock band, and you figure out a way to work the Latin in, and you maybe come up with your own new thing that others aren't doing. And don't go cookie cutter with your learning. Go with that inspiration. Of course, work on new challenging things all the time. I'm not saying that, but keep an open mind. And when you're looking for inspiration too, it's like, what's inspiring about that drummer, and just try to analyze it.
James Harrison said, be the best version of you. And Fred Fisher said, I'm the drummer archaeologist. I'm helping my students find the drummer from within. I like that, Fred.
Thanks, guys. Wow.
Just trying to dig up the drummer bones.
Boise rock.
Bones. He's trying to find the Krupa gene.
Yeah. Yeah.
Gotta leave
Good
that.
stuff. Good
It
stuff.
is good stuff. It's a lot to think about,
Oh.
And it's easier said than done. I mean, I think a lot of people would hear this and say, oh yeah, that makes sense. That resonates. I can't be Buddy Rich, so I'm going to be the best version of Joe. But being the best version of Joe, that's a big commitment. Right?
It is. It takes work.
Yeah. And that's the whole, the whole landscape is littered with people who didn't, make the commitment hard enough, or decided it wasn't as important to them. And, like we say, 95% of the drummers in the world are hobbyists. And there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing at all.
Yeah.
It's a great thing to do. We love it. So I'm a hobbyist too. I just do it all the time. I pursued drumming because I liked it so much. I was like, why? This is fun to play. And then I discovered I had a knack for teaching. And so I just figured out a way to make it so that I could spend my life drumming, playing, and teaching.
I looked down at my bass drum the other night in service while we were playing music. And I looked down at the bass drum, and I just had a flash of a memory when I was 8 years old, and my parents took me into this club, and we ate food, and they had a drum set on the stage. I remember looking at a bass drum that looked exactly like the one I play in church. And I remember thinking, somebody's allowed to hit that.
Yeah.
Somebody's allowed to play that. That's their job.
Yeah.
Wow.
It can be anything, you know. It doesn't have to be drumming. You know, I mean, how fortunate are the professional athletes that played a sport, loved it, got good enough that they could make it to that level. But
Yeah.
it could be, you know, you love working with wood and making things with wood, and you become a carpenter, and you know, you can love what you do and be good at it and be motivated and find inspiration with anything you do.
There it is. Good stuff, guys.
Yep. Well, speaking of which, I can't believe it, but we're actually out of time. Thanks you guys for tuning in. James, as always, great to
Wow.
see you. And Fred, of course. James, we'd love to have you on the show, man. You've been a regular contributor to our show, and I know you're an established player and educator, and we'd love to have you on if you're interested.
Yeah, James, come on, man. What's going on? Let's do this.
Yeah, well, probably January, February, because I know we have next week. Just to remind you guys, we have our annual Deck the Halls show.
Deck the halls.
So that's going to be super fun. We got a bunch of cool stuff we're going to be giving away from some of our sponsors. Oh, also wanted to mention, we're very excited that we have a couple of new sponsors to the deck. Audix Microphones has signed on to be a partnership with us, which we're super excited about, as well as In-Ears, INEARZ. They're a company that makes earplugs and in-ear monitors, and we're super excited to partner with them. And we're going to be talking about those products coming up soon. We're going to have guys from those companies on to talk about what they do. But in the meantime, Deck the Halls is next week. We're going to be giving away a snare drum from Gretsch. We're going to be giving away some drum heads from Aquarian, another one of our sponsors. And we are excited to see you guys next week. We're going to be talking about all these cool Christmas gifts and holiday gifts that we're going to recommend. And yeah, it's kind of like the best of 2024.
It's going to be cool.
Check out my Onyx D2. It's about the size of 2 marshmallows.
Oh,
Nice.
that's awesome.
Nice.
Yep. Sounds so good.
All right, you guys, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next week. And oh, yeah, don't forget, next week, tune in, because if you're tuning into the show, you have a chance of winning some great prizes.
Sounds
Thank
good
you,
to
guys.
me.
Play us
All right.
out, Rick.
Every week. Croupadine.
The Krupa Gene, indeed. Yeah, man.